What's going on, people? What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? Yo, it is another Wednesday. It's another Wednesday right here with yours truly, live on YouTube and Twitch, baby. It is Vivid Life TV. I almost said Vivid Nights. It's Vivid Life TV with yours truly, Alex Auguste, man. And it is another beautiful Wednesday night. Behind schedule a little bit, but I had to make dinner, man. I was crashing out earlier. I almost in the in the spirit of Lauryn Hill, I almost didn't do this tonight just because I was fasting, right? And because I was fasting, it had to make me. I was crashing out, bro. Like I had to end the fast early, and had to bring my ass home and get some dinner in me before bad things happen. So a little delayed, but nonetheless, man, we're still here for another Wednesday night of Vivid Life TV with Alex Auguste on YouTube and Twitch. I am still figuring out the whole TikTok thing and trying to figure out how to get this on TikTok. I'm TikTok monetized. I can definitely get this on TikTok. It's just a matter of honestly power, right? The amount of power it would take to run multiple programs to go live at the same time would kind of sounds a little crazy to me, and I don't want to lose any quality on these streams because we're looking good so far, right? This is cool. As usual, I got my tracking camera. I can tell you guys a little bit about what I use in terms of getting this right and getting this situated. Shout out to my peoples over on Twitch. They're tuned in right now. Drop into the chat. Let me know that you guys are tuned in. Shout out to everybody that's tuning in on YouTube as well. And as usual, y'all, just let you guys know, if you don't know already, all of these streams are always available to check out on my page, whether it's Twitch or YouTube. So if you do miss a moment, if you miss a segment, there's always clips, there's always highlights, and they're interchangeable between the two. And we'll start making our way over to TikTok as well. So for tonight's stream, y'all, it's going to be real simple. As you saw in the caption, as you saw in the description, grab you a glass of wine, because as I mentioned last week and as I've been mentioning over the past couple weeks, we're going to be actually diving into a couple of pages of my book, We Missed a Meeting. I was low-key going to give you guys the option because there's actually 3 books. This is crazy. Like, I just want to take a moment real quick to just do this, to just like spread books out. I can now do that. This is obviously A Boy Bathed in Blood, which came out in 2021. One of my favorite stories, actually, that I've ever written. Really, really dope, very spacey, very trippy. The Overseer, the Inheritance of the Grace Family. I gotta tell y'all that writing, like, I know a lot of people are super critical of Marvel in terms of like the multiverse saga and going back in time and Endgame and things like that. That's not that. It's not easy to write. It actually isn't easy to write. I can tell you that right now. Defining that big of a world in sci-fi is not an easy feat. But crazy enough, man, this actually took, and I've been focusing a lot more on talking about just novels and books and things like that and everything that I have on the literary side, because that's the season that I'm getting ready to enter. I think I talked about this last week, where I tend to write more in the fall. I think like once the hot boy summer dies down, things like that, all of that kind of energy of just being outside and travel. Once that slows down, sun starts coming out all early and stuff. I find myself staying up later. There's just a little bit more, like, life slows down, and I find myself writing more. So as I'm getting ready to get into that season to start writing some new stories and pieces, that's why I'm kind of focusing these streams on this topic. But ironically enough, if we go back 4 years to 2020, what are we in? August 28th. August 28th, Chadwick Boseman, rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman. Chadwick Boseman passes away. August 28th, 2020. I had not even started this book yet. I don't think I started anything for this yet. This took me like a solid 6 months to write, which is crazy because I figured out a new way of writing that just helped me actually get through this book pretty quickly. So it was really, really dope. I will spend another evening, another time focused on A Boy Bathed in Blood, but the skinny version of it is this is a 3-part series, kind of an anthology. Uh, Maybe I should start taking that out of the name, but you can see there it says, hold on, I got to get the camera focused. An intro to Origins 24, The Overseer, The Inheritance of the Grace Family, A Boy Bathed in Blood. Really cool, like 3-piece story there, which is you have a young man who is a slave in Missouri in 1858, and he finds out through his grandfather that his lineage has the ability to time travel. He's 16 years old, and so if you can imagine yourself at 16 years old with all of the struggles that you already have because of puberty and growing up and all that kind of stuff, and then you find out that, like, essentially you can find out who you are or who you come to be or who you grow up to be in the future. And when he finds out what that looks like, he also has to discover that he has to take that journey completely alone. He has to take that journey without his mother, without his grandfather, and through a whole lot of pain. And that kind of kicks off the whole piece about what the story in itself is about. And I think, when I was writing that, I was kind of thinking of like, yeah, that might not necessarily be realistic. But then it's like you factor in like, yeah, 16 years old, bro. I like my first couple of stories that I had ever written were all like coming of age stories. And I do like a good coming of age story. I like a good, strong like character development in any piece that I watch or read or anything like that. I feel like that's a very important part of characters and movies that you watch and everything like that. But I love a good coming of age story. I relate to a good coming of age story, and I feel like there's conflict in that space that has never really been kind of like explored. And so I decided to write A Boy Bathed in Blood. On the back it says Alex Auguste Origins 24 series begins with this powerful 3-part introduction to the John Draco stories with the Overseer, the Inheritance of the Grace Family, and the featured A Boy Bathed in Blood, introducing us to 3 new settings: the universe the future will never know and the present will never live. We're brought to the origins of Sterling John Grace, or John Draco, and his early life on the Grace estate in Missouri. When his grandfather introduces him to the gift of time travel, John's tumultuous journey on the time path begins, as does his rank as the traveler. Dope. All right, that's one. The next one, this is not out yet. If you watch my videos on my YouTube channel, you'll actually see, specifically if you watch My Real Vivid Life, the preface is the end, part 2. That's a video on my channel. That was one of the first videos really that started the channel back up back in 2022. There is mention of a story called The Black Grasshopper. And I specifically say, I wish I could just chop into this and drop the video piece about this. But it specifically says that I wrote a story called The Black Grasshopper that was specifically for me. This, and it's kind of cool that I get to say this on video versus in blog posts, because I've talked about this piece a lot over the last couple years, right? And as you can see there, it says not for sale because this is a proof. And one of the reasons why it's still a proof is because this is a very, very raw story. Like I really can't even tell y'all like how raw of a story it is. But it's a very, very raw story. And I'll read you the back of this too. Let's go to Garden. Oh, my bad. In a faraway land, there was a garden. It was a lush and beautiful garden with animals of all sorts and sizes and colors who lived among each other in absolute harmony. Among each other and absolute harmony. And in that garden, every spring, a beautiful gust of wind would come to help free the young grasshoppers as they transitioned into their newest forms. They would all jump as high as they could and flap their new wings to become their beautiful new selves, all except for one. His name was Black Grasshopper. Reasons that no one in the garden could ever find out, Black Grasshopper just couldn't shed his old self and struggled for almost 3 seasons of this beautiful gust to finally flap his wings. Oh no, Black Grasshopper, you mustn't run off to try and stop the gust. Oh no, Black Grasshopper, you mustn't go try and stop your friends from flapping their beautiful wings. For what he didn't know was that stopping their growth would never help his own. This shit right here is actually, I don't know if I said this yet, but this is actually my first story. Like, this was the very first story I had ever written. Like, at all, like ever. This was it. And the preface is really, really raw. Like, I mean, overall, this story is very, very raw, and it's very, very close to me because it's about my own life. So, you know, I got a little bit of hesitation with how I present this. And the last time that I had this book printed out, and as you guys can see with this proof, this is not how I would want to open up the preface. It's so raw, y'all. It's talking about the Black Grasshopper that I was. And I think that's just not, man, I don't know. I don't know if I could stomach putting out something as raw as that. But in this opening page here, you'll see the process of molting requires that an organism must die in its old self and be born anew in the wake of that death, emerging from the corpse of its former self, a new animal, a new being, and a new entity. I wish this rebirth on anyone and everyone struggling to find themselves, their path, and their purpose. Let go. Bruh. So yeah, this is a good one. It's a super short story. I think the preface might be the longest part of this book. The book is a total of maybe 80 or so pages, but super raw. And a lot of my creations you will find embedded in this book. Really, really cool. Really, really cool. And then, of course, the meat and potatoes. We missed the meeting. And so tonight, man, I'm just going to kind of kick it. Honestly, there's not really much to this stream. This collar seems a little, whoa. It looks a little wild on camera, doesn't it? There's not really a lot much else to this stream. I am going to ask that y'all share the link. I just dropped it on Twitter. I'm sharing it out on Facebook. Actually, Alex Origins. Yeah, it's raw, bro. Like, I don't think I could do it. I don't think so, bro. It's so raw. What up, bro? Like, all right. So let's take this stream. We're gonna share this out to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to randomly select a page. I'm just going to kind of crack this book open. We're going to randomly select a page and we're going to read through a couple of pages, you know, and just kind of get through that. Read a couple pages. Read through a couple pages, which is going to be fun, to be honest with you. And if y'all have any questions or if you kind of like anything, drop it in the chat. I know this is called Wine and a Read Through, and I'm going to be honest and be kind of selfish. I do have a wine bottle. This Trader Joe's Charles Shaw blend. It's a Sauvignon Blanc. Sauvignon. I don't usually drink Sauvignon Blanc, and because today rained so astronomically hard, the idea of going to Trader Joe's for a new glass of some red was not in my idea. And like I said earlier, I was fasting, so I was kind of hurting. But let's do this. If you guys share this and you guys pump this out, like just pump it out, and you guys stay engaged in the chat every time y'all like communicate or correspond in the chat, I'll actually crack this open and I'll take a sip. So every time there's a chat piece, I'll take a sip. I know that sounds risky and it's probably a bad idea on a Wednesday night, but if y'all are rocking with me on this wine and a read through, I will do that. I will actually do that. So let's see here. Oh yeah. But yeah, so one thing that I've been thinking about, but also exploring and doing research on as well, man, is that I know people like audiobooks, but it has really crossed my mind of like, is an audiobook feasible? And more than just feasible, is an audiobook worth the squeeze? And worth the squeeze meaning the amount of work that it would be to create an audiobook. Would it make sense for the vision? And two, is there a way to do it wrong, right? When I think of an audiobook, I think of the audiobooks that I've read. I have an Audible account. I have credits on my Audible account. So if anybody wants extra credits, I can definitely send it to you, because I'm actually getting ready to read this Jonah Berger, Contagious. It's about marketing, and not so much marketing, but like the psychology of marketing more than it is about the actual strategies of marketing. Anyways, I think of Charlemagne, I think of Kevin Hart, I think of Michelle Obama's book, I think of Barack Obama's book. I think of all of these like memoir style stories for Audible books or for audiobooks. I don't really think of, Child of Blood and Bone. I don't think of Harry Potter. I don't think of reading what's another one? A Nick Stone bestseller, or Ta-Nehisi Coates. Like, I don't think of reading fiction when I think of Audible books, because I think there becomes this cycle of how many people you have to have on staff as voice actors to do an audiobook, right? So when it came up when I was getting ready to more so work on A Boy Bathed in Blood than anything else, and I was just like, dude, you're officially recording like a mixtape, like a fiction mixtape podcast. And realistically speaking, the reason why it is a little bit more difficult is because of the connection, right? Just like with any voice acting, you got to really connect to those characters. You got to really, really, really be that character. Like, you know what I mean? So like, even when I read this tonight, I'm really hoping that I don't land on a part of the story where it's like 19 people in the room, because it becomes hard to be like, back the fuck up, nigga, he said. Like, and just transitioning through like each person is like, it's hard, man. It's hard. So let me just drop this real quick. But yeah, I think it's really, really hard. So we're gonna see how this goes, man. It makes me laugh every time. 'Cause I'm just like that. It really is literally like that. It's like, yo, you gotta really be, you know. So I might kind of, I don't want to say mess this up, but I might. It might sound a little rougher than we're used to. All right, so this is the title that I'm actually getting ready to re-release. At the end of this stream, go ahead and make sure y'all remind me. At the end of the stream, I'm going to be talking about when I expect this re-release to happen. But go ahead and take that in. That is the cover. It's crazy that the webcam's mirrored. So it says, a spiraling story of calculated coincidences. We missed a meeting. They chose you, Mr. Ferguson, by Alex Auguste. I actually just like the fact that this cover is actually really, really clean. Matte cover. I got the August on the spine in red. They chose you, Mr. Ferguson, stacked, right? Because we have enough pages, 330 pages. Really, really cool. So when you put this up on your bookshelf, you know, bam, August, which I absolutely wanted that, right? That's a lot of thought that goes into building up a jacket. But a spiraling tale of calculated coincidences. On June 8th, 2020, the whole world will awaken to learn that somehow, some way, the whole world isn't here with us anymore. As we spiral down into a story of what seems to be a global coincidence, we follow the conflicted Richard Ferguson, who is now forced to rediscover his place in the world while trying to run away from the secrets and repercussions of his past. Everything isn't quite what it seems, but one thing for sure is that everything has come undone. And We Missed the Meeting, we're immediately plunged into the first literary work of Alex Auguste, whose reputation as a storyteller is sure to draw new audiences in with this intense social commentary that crosses science fiction with horror inspirations. And then there's the dumb part of the back of the book that I put on there that I really fucking shouldn't have. And that's the reason why I'm re-releasing the book in the first place. Like, hey man, whoever told me to put my bio on the back of a book, whoever that was, I don't know who it was, bro, but whoever you were that told me you should put a bio on the back of the book and a photo. I did not put I didn't put a photo on the back of the book, but I definitely put information that I just didn't need to fucking put on the back of the book. And once your life starts to change, there's some outdated information that you live and you learn, right? Ironically, how I even remembered, and I think I talked about this last week, I probably talked about it on Instagram. How I remembered that I even needed to make a change at all was that I was actually, I wouldn't say we were dating, but I went on a couple of dates with somebody back in 2020. And she was like, hey, I read your book. And I was like, oh, word, that's what's up. Okay. She was like, hey, I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this question, but your book says that you're married. And I was like, oh yeah, we need to re-release. We need to do a re-release. So yeah, it's a big piece of it, right? So that's not the case anymore. All right, so this is how it's gonna work, y'all. If you're tuned in right now, we have the chat open. Feel free to like this, feel free to share this, and most importantly, as you comment, I'm actually gonna tell you guys, if you just do WMAM, WeMam is We Missed the Meeting. If you like something that you hear, if you want to comment on what you're hearing, if you're just enjoying the read through, if you have your glass of wine, whatever the case may be, every time there is a wee ma'am in the chat, I'm going to crack this bottle of Sauvignon Blanc. I'm going to crack that open and I'm going to take a nice little pour. I got these necklace wine glasses. Get you one. This is actually from Dollar Tree. Never be afraid to shop at Dollar Tree. Okay. Very nice necklace. I'm sorry, stemless wine glass. But yeah, every time I see wee ma'am in the chat, I will go ahead and drop. You know, I know my friends well enough to know, but I feel like I should say that before Justin gets on. But yeah, as y'all do that, I'll pour, I'll drink, I'll talk, and I'll get to reading. So first things first, what we're gonna have to do is we're going to crack this open, and I anticipate that I'm probably only gonna read about 20 pages, right? That's a max. I'm gonna try my best not to get excited or try to explain anything to you guys that you guys did not specifically ask me to explain. But if you want me to explain something, feel free to just hop right into the chat and say, Alex, explain. All right. So here we go. We're going for the crack in 3, 2, and 1. Oh, this is good. Oh, this is really good. Okay, I just turned one page because we can't do like a half, right? We can't do a fragmented dialogue. Okay. Should I explain where I'm starting in the story? At least so it's not so. Actually, no, I take that back. This is the perfect place, bro. I don't think I could have landed on a better spot. So let's do this. I'm just gonna dial that down to about an 85 on the brightness. Okay, bring it down a little bit more. Let's do 60. 60 might be a little dark. All right, there we go. And now I'm gonna take off with this reading. I gotta figure out my character voice here. Like I told y'all, this this gets interesting. All right. Two of us walked out holding hands to the living room where my mother, Ileana, and Stacy's brother, Lorenzo, were sitting in front of the television, watching the stories develop. You two might want to see this, Lorenzo said, throwing a mini basketball in the air. This is Jason Patterson with WTAL here. We're bringing you live coverage on a developing story right here in town. Last night, we covered some details about whereabouts of some of the town's most prominent leaders, including our station producer, Kevin Doyle, our police chief, and many more who are completely unaccounted for. Interim Chief Bernardo Crawford has been spearheading the operations to continue developing leads, even with limited staff. Now, by the grace of good citizenship, there have been a multitude of citizens volunteering and becoming deputized who are assisting in the efforts to bring more information forward, keep the streets safe, and finding where our leaders have gone. We are on site here along with a number of other stations for a press conference to be led by Bernardo Crawford of DPD on new developments that have come to him overnight. We're now turning it over to Officer Crawford now. That's my little journalist voice. Our room went completely quiet. Officer Crawford, who just a day earlier seemed optimistic in their situation, seemed tired, restless, and stern. First and foremost, I'd like to give a round of applause and a very large thank you to the multitude of citizens of this wonderful city who've made it possible both to cater to the needs of our citizens while assisting and allowing us to allocate manpower, resources, and energy to the development in our current case to find our police chief. As of 8:20 a.m. today, June 9th, 2020, the police chief has not been located, nor do we have any leads as to his location and the location of his family. In addition to the police, now we have also discovered that our mayor, Donald England, the superintendent of schools, along with a number of other everyday citizens, are also missing. We here at DPD have decided that the nature of the situation bears very disturbing signs, and so we've decided to provide the utmost transparency so that our department can be honest and provide real facts to our citizens. Overnight, we've gone door to door, counting the number of emptied houses, and with the warrant from Judge Williams, we've been able to check on the status of many of the homes that bore no response to doorbell rings. We have counted over 729 homes that have been either completely abandoned or have missing persons. On a head count basis, we currently have over 4,374 people to be missing. Our entire room was filled with a large, heavy gasp. God damn. 4,000 what? Can that many people actually be missing? We do not want our folks currently at home watching this presser to feel alarmed. There has been signs of foul play. There has been no signs of foul play or harm done to these individuals, which is why we're not terribly alarmed by these numbers. It is summer, and therefore we are currently checking travel logs to determine if a large majority of these folks have left for vacation. Nigga, when 4,000 people leave for vacation, it's called migration, Crawford. Exodus. This is bullshit. People are going to be worried by this information. I need y'all to go ahead and cut the news off now. It's going to make people act all kinds of scary. My mother continued, turning her back to the TV and finishing her coffee. In addition to this information, one of the biggest developments we need to make our city aware of. As of noon yesterday, there had been a massive break into our police barracks where some of our tactical gear has been kept safe. It appears there was a shortage and the security system was compromised, thus allowing more than 40 individuals to hijack riot gear, assault rifles, helmets, and even 3 mini tanks, which are currently unaccounted for. During yesterday's chopper cam airing, we were able to locate these individuals and crossfire ensued. We are warning all citizens of the city, do not confront these thugs. Do not stick around them for them. Do not stick around for them to approach you. And upon seeing them, we ask that you immediately relocate to a safe place and call our emergency line. These men are armed, extremely dangerous, and are impersonating police officers to gain whatever they can from innocent people. Jesus Christ. So those guys yesterday weren't even police? I looked at Ileana, who looked at me and gestured to wipe her forehead as to say, we were lucky. We want these thugs to know that we are on to them, and we will be cracking down on them with both force and the strongest hand of the law. They have been intercepting some of our initial radio calls, but we've moved quickly to change our protocol. If you're out there, it's time to let you know we're ready and you will be brought down. Why doesn't that sound nearly close to believable? Ileana said out loud. Because it ain't. He ain't gonna find them niggas, Lorenzo said surely. See what I mean? Like, see what I mean? Okay, we got a wee man. All right. Damn, I gotta go get my corkscrew. So please pause for a brief intermission. All right, we're back. So this is my first pour, courtesy of DJ Brightlight, and his first call of a wee man. All right, there we go. All right. Cheers, y'all. Can't get a Trader Joe's. Y'all be bragging on. Can't get a Trader Joe's. All right. So we're back. Aside from these details, we want people to know it is safe to come out. We have enforced a curfew for the best interest of our civilians, but it is only so that we have access to all our roads and we can keep account of homes. It's a beautiful day here in our neighborhood and our beautiful city, and as long as you're safe, we want you all to enjoy it as best as you can. Later today, Councilwoman Jackie Dole will be holding her own presser to address some additional information from her office as well. I'm sure you good folks in the media will be present. That's all for me. Any questions? As Crawford began taking his questions, I couldn't help but feel the looming threat of what was now two threats made by me. One by Will and Chuck, the second by who I now know to be an imposter. Okay, listen, guys. We need to hit an ATM and pull as much money out as possible. The more money we have on us, the better. How does that even sound safe, Dick? Lorenzo said. We're going to need to fill up the cars, get food. I don't know, prepare for shit. You don't even sound sure of that, brother. What are we preparing for? And is it even that safe to leave an ATM with money like that? All five of us? Well, that's the beauty of you and I going together and just taking their cards, no? To answer that question, Hugh, this is back on the TV. The best thing to do if approached by some of these thugs in uniform is to do your best to not escalate the situation. But in the case that you may be in danger and a registered firearm owner, you'll have to do what you feel is best. Even if it heightens your danger, the best thing you can do, the best thing we can say is to do what feels best for you and your family, whatever is safest. It's what we're going to have to do, right? I looked at your Lorenzo and he just didn't seem sure of himself. I don't have a card. I only have cash, which is at my house. Ileana's statement cracked attention but raised questions. How much do you have? And where do you live? I have close to 1,000 and I stay close to Southside. It'd be impossible to get there without getting locked into the gridlock on the expressway. Well, damn. Nobody said nothing about getting your... Well, damn. Nobody said nothing about getting your cash, girl. Lorenzo, leave her alone. You get one pretty girl in your house and you don't know how to act, I swear. My mother barked at him, smiling, noticing his flirting with Ileana. The sooner the better. So let's go, Lorenzo. I don't want to go. I'll be honest, Dick. It's hot out there, and I don't even think it's smart or necessary to hit the ATM for money. Do we need money right now? We might. For what, bruh? He was the type to say brother or abbreviated and give it a soft, lingering S sound. Niggas is out here real ass robbing, stealing from 12, and you want to hit the ATM, bruh. That's the dumbest shit I've heard all week. You trying to get us robbed or killed. Okay, Dickie, Stacy interviewed. Maybe he's right. It's risky. We need to know that if we're leaving the house for a really good reason, not to pull almost $5,000 out of an ATM, if that. They were right. But the better question became, what will we leave the house for today? Okay. I understand. You all are right. Besides, I probably should keep on resting and staying in. Oh, hold up, baby. Mama ain't saying nothing about staying in. I've got to go. I got errands to run and a few people owe me money. Might as well go get some favors done. Mom, are you serious? Dead serious, boy. I can't be cooped up in the house, especially with curfew being at 5 o'clock, Richard. You might as well seize the sunshine while you can. It's summer anyway. Stacy looked at me in agreement. We can go on my side of town where it's not all crazy and people shitting their pants because a few thousand white people are vacationing, she giggled. My mother went on her way, as she always does, while Ileana, Lorenzo, Stacy, and I packed into her Jeep and cruised out to the side of town where her salon was. To say the least, her shop was in the hood, the Heights. It wasn't like City Square or Henderson, where I lived, that had nice university-affiliated lofts, apartments, and studios made for young undergraduate bachelors and girls trying not to use up all their family's money. No, this was the Lower East Side. It was hood. It was brown sign, historic district, cobblestone roads, and railroad crossings from the 1800s hood. People walked in any direction on the streets and were completely unbothered by the worry and fear that Officer Crawford was putting into the air. In fact, most of the people here didn't even care to respect Officer Crawford. Likewise, Stacy checked into her salon and found that it was just a regular day at the shop. Sort of. There was a woman with her young daughter shouting that her daughter had a 6 p.m. appointment, but with the curfew needed to be moved up. The gentleman walked in exhibiting watches over his forearm to the ladies from open boxes while his partner continued walking around, nodding to everyone that the watches were real. Oh, they authentic, I'm telling you. That's real white gold, baby. It's Coors, lady, he spoke, and with every other word was complimented by sucking air through his gold teeth. Discounted. Last fall's looks. They would eventually leave, and as we sat down, Stacy began talking to her associate. I'm in the same clothes as yesterday, Ileana remarked. Oh, you are? Damn, I felt bad for her. We should probably get you to a store or something, right? If possible, or you can just drop me off close to my place and I can walk. I don't want to put y'all out the way. Right now, it's not looking like there is a way for us. Stacy looked worried, stepped away from her associate, and walked over towards Ileana and I. Dickie, you said you had got caught up yesterday with some boys from Powerman? What were their names? My heart dropped. In fact, I felt like I swallowed an 8-ball whole straight off the pool table. Will and Chuck, why? What's going on? Tifa over there just said somebody came by yesterday looking for you here. What the fuck, Richard? Hold on. They don't know that you work here. How do you know they don't know that I work here? How do you know anything at all about that, Richard? You don't know who they were. Lorenzo stood up, approached the door to greet someone who looked like a friend of his. What up, Daryl? What's good with you? Man, Renzo, what up? What it is, bro? You good? Man, I can't call it. Whole city going to shit, bro. Boy, I hear that. His and Daryl's exchange was trivial, or so I thought. Just as I looked up, this kid, Daryl, was eyeing me, second looking, and peering over Lorenzo's shoulder for a better look. As I tried to get a good look at him, I peered over to Tifa, who also looked uncomfortable about Daryl's being there. Shit. I could only move forward, and Daryl reached into his waistband to pull out a gun and pointed it towards the back of the salon where Ileana, Stacy, and I were seated. It was like some calculated chance. Just as I could see him focus on his aim in the crosshairs, Eves, one of the stylists, hit the corner, and one shot was let off from Daryl's gun. It was that pop again. That loud, wet, fleshy pop. It was one solid pop that made my ears ring and my eyes squint. There was blood splattered, leaking, and spread across the entire back of the salon. But more importantly than my ears, Eves had been hit directly in the neck. Daryl immediately took off running. I had never seen a body bleed out like that in my life, and I had never known how fast one goes from sudden disbelief that you're hit to being a still corpse. The wound was massive. On one side, a fine hole, blood running out of it. You could see how the loss of blood and the asphyxiation to his airway and his ability to breathe was painfully leaking out of him. On the other side, it was a mess. I'd assume the bullet exited his neck because there was just flesh ripped open or blasted out forcefully. Where one side was a leaking wound, The other side was just redness and blood running down large chunks of flesh. It was like watching a stream run over rocks, heading downhill or something. There's a dam at the border of Georgia and South Carolina, at Augusta, I think, that looks just like this. But it ain't blood, and it damn sure ain't death. Though it felt like forever that we were hearing him squirm in pain and agony, Eves was dead within just a minute and a half. His body, soaked in his own blood, laid on the ground in a puddle. Everyone bursted out of the salon in hysteria and fright, and once I reached outside, I could see Daryl sprinting down the block with Lorenzo shortly behind him. Lorenzo ran track, and nothing becomes second nature like running like a runner remembering what it feels to eat someone down. Joe, they over there. That Richard dude is at the... Lorenzo stuffed his mouth full of fists, but it was already too late. I could see activity, movement, cars starting, tires screeching, and suddenly 4 cars jumped out from both sides of the road and started making their way towards the salon. It was all in slow motion for me, at least. It gave me enough time to think of what to do. Lorenzo wailing on the young boy's face within close range to where the cars were, and then the last car jumped out, and there he was, sitting passenger seat in an old 1985 Chevy Monte Carlo was Chuck, looking on as the 5 cars approached us. I pushed Ileana and Stacy to move out the way, reached down towards my waistband, and began to rapidly fire. I just kept pulling the trigger on the .22 Pierre gave me. It felt like my only option at the time. I pulled, and just before I jumped behind a large tree in front of the salon, I aimed right at the driver's side of the car Chuck was in and could see red splat just before it swerved out of control and crashed. I peered back out from behind the tree and fired repeatedly, almost without end until the clip was completely empty. Get in the car now, quick! I shouted for the 2 girls to get in the car, get down, and await my orders. When I revved the car up and headed towards Lorenzo, it was then that I had seen that he had been shot right in his side by Daryl, his own boy, or so we thought. Oftentimes, it can be your own people. He crouched over, holding his side in agony, bleeding out and trying to press with enough pressure to stop the bleeding, but it wasn't working. There was massive bleeding, and all I can think of was that there was now going to be 2 people dead on account of Chuck and Will trying to get me. One of the cars had space to make a U-turn and spun around to face us. We peeled off and they began to follow. Stacy was hysterical, completely undone, but I didn't blame her. Her little brother, younger by a few years, lied in the front seat of the car, a bloody puddle, a mess, and losing life by the second. And to make matters worse, we were being followed. We gotta lose him. Fuck, we gotta lose him, was all I could say out loud. Renzo, please, Renzo, give me your hand. Stacy reached from the back seat for her brother's hand, and his hand was shaking feverishly. Renzo, I want you to relax your breathing, all right, bro? I want you to be easy, just in and out, okay? We're gonna get you to a hospital as soon as we can. He turned to look at me, and I could see his eyes rolling. He gave me the thumbs up. I got you, bro. I got you, bro. Shit, I got you. Shit, dick. He began to cough, and by the sound of his cough and the blood that came out his mouth, I knew this wasn't a good sign for my little brother. Man, that's crazy. He said little brother. Richard, please. Richard, faster, please. Richard, we need to get him to a hospital. Make no mistake, I was driving as fast as the car could go. The engine was revving as hard as it could go, breathing as deep as Renzo was, and equally straining itself to do so. Stacy didn't change her damn tires. And though we were pushing 85 and a 45, the bouncing and the instability of the tires made that Jeep a flying coffin for all of us. There was so much going on, and suddenly I felt a hand reach over my shoulder, grab the gun, and point it out the window. I wanted to tell Ileana the gun was empty, but all I heard was 5 clicks. Fuck you! She sat back down, defeated and aware of the full scope of how fucked we were. Richard, I need you to drive as fast as you can. The only place I could think of to go to was an urgent care about 5 minutes from where we were. It wasn't far, which meant losing the car behind us was going to be one hell of a feat, if it were possible at all. My instincts told me what to do, but didn't tell me what was best. What was best was probably going to be to hit the highway, go opposite of the ambulance jam. My instincts also told me to cross the main tracks and hope for the best. Maybe the train might come, I was hoping. Maybe it would be right on time on this very strange, bizarre day. I was a few yards, maybe about 5 seconds ahead of the car. And once I crossed the tracks, to my disbelief, the car began to slow down and turn around. I don't know why, but I felt both blessed and worried. We arrived at the urgent care and they immediately began trying to work on Lorenzo. We're going to need you all to move out of this room. This isn't an ER, but we all can probably work on this. We just need some space, okay? Please. That was all they told us before closing the door and leaving us in the waiting room. The three of us, bloodied, shaken, and worried. I stepped to Stacy and she shoved me aside to grab Ileana by the throat and hair and began violently shaking her. This is you. This is your fault. All this shit is your fault. That's my fucking brother. She shook the poor girl, dropping her to the ground as I put my weight on her both to confront her and stop her from harming the innocent girl. How the fuck was this Ileana's fault? This was more likely on me, or if not, on Pierre. No, Stacy, don't do this. This was on me. This was my fault. This was no one's fault. Chuck is mad. Chuck is upset. I was choking on my words. Chuck is angry at me, not her, me. Even if he had got her again, it wouldn't be about her. It's me. The three of us sat there on the floor, Renzo's blood staining our shirts, and cried together. It was quite possible that we were all crying for three respective reasons. For Ileana, it was victim's guilt. That her unwillingness to just stop resisting those two guys, that her guard was down long enough for them to pull up on her, grab her, and try to impose their will, made her the object of vengeance. Maybe. It was a weird string of events and logic that really doesn't make sense. For Stacy, what else? It was her brother, shot on the side, bleeding and possibly losing his life. It was her coworker, Eves, who she'd worked with for so long, dead innocently on account of situations she had no part of. Her being here was in part by the actions or lack of actions of Ileana and I. And so for both of them, and for Renzo, for Daryl, for the guy driving the car, for Eves, for the whole damn world, I cried. I held them because suddenly it felt like everything was my fault. And I was going to have to answer someday, somehow, to someone. My heart was heavy for everyone and for myself. I was just scared. One of the nurses stepped out of the room, almost out of breath, completely covered in blood. Look, we can stop some of the bleeding, but he's already lost a lot of blood. Are any of you relatives of this young man? Yes, I am. We're going to need to know his blood type, and we're going to need someone to give up some blood immediately. I'll do it, a voice spoke up. I'll do it, another voice spoke up. My God, an older gentleman stood up. I'll give blood if the young man needs it as well. We'll give blood too. A couple, scratched up and with one on a cast on her ankle, spoke up as well. For a second in awe, I looked around and noticed that in an urgent care filled with other people who were also there for their own injuries and sick illnesses, possibly, everyone in that room was willing to donate blood to Lorenzo. That's a dope little scene. I like that scene a lot. All right, let me take a quick sip. Boy, I forgot how crazy some of these descriptions are. But it's good. Y'all let me know what y'all think so far, man. I forgot what page I was just on real quick. All right. That was a whole chat. Let me make sure I know how many pages we just. Okay. In about an hour's time, the 12 people willing to donate, 4 were a match and could donate, and the rest sought their normal treatments. I thought it was wise to park the car in the back of the urgent care just in case Chuck's people rode by again. What seemed like shock to me was most of all of this was how connected Chuck seemed to be on this side of town. The guy seemed like a cool guy, but never in the sense of having lookouts and thugs and people willing to shoot on sight. I took his threat seriously at first, but now seeing the damage done, I was going to have to move more strategically here on out. I was not only in danger, but becoming a danger to others simply by being around. Stacy had just hung up her phone, coming off a call with one of the girls from the salon. Babe, I can't believe Stacy now is coming undone again. Just yesterday, her shop seemed unbothered by the events of what was going on. Now one person was dead, influenced by a guy who was put in his place off the clock by a manager he didn't like. I shouldn't have shot at them, I thought. The body count of all this nonsense has now risen to 2. And if Renzo can't make it, 3. Was I wrong to shoot Stacy? Were you wrong to shoot? Her face under the grimace of her cry scrunched up. Richard, are you fucking serious? Richard, they tried to kill you. Ileana looked over and interjected. The gun it's not registered to me. If I killed the driver, Richard, they killed Eves. They shot Eves. He is dead. Stacy was damn near shouting now. We need more protection, Richard. You need to call the police. Ileana, who had just jumped into the conversation, crossed her legs, gesturing that the conversation no longer included her. Like, let me stay out of this. What the fuck are the police gonna do? They're fucking understaffed as fuck, and I can go to jail for all of this. Richard, you have witnesses. We have witnesses who have also poorly warned you that people were looking for me. Perhaps just not the right Perhaps just not the right response. Not now. So it was a deep, angry voice from Stacy at the moment. Are you going to run? Because the truth is Lorenzo's been shot. This gun is empty. You don't have an army with you, Richard. You ain't got no gang with you, Richard. You can't Rambo your way through all these niggas, Richard. You don't know how many people he has, and at the end of the day, retaliation only brings more retaliation. You had this big gun this whole time, but you won't next time. Guaranteed. We need help, Richard, period. And if you don't get it, she swallowed her spit, also trying not to cry anymore, then I definitely won't be around you. On God, Richard. She was right. I was no thug. I don't have it in me to old dog my way through Chuck, Will, and whatever people they have spread around the whole town. I don't know how they found the shop, and I also don't know what else information or addresses they have access to. Police might not be a bad ally to have. So fine. The police would arrive about 45 minutes later, a trio of officers, actual officers, who walked in and immediately identified that they were there for me. They requested a small room in the back of urgent care and began to work the story out of me. By the way, y'all, welcome to, welcome to Wine and a Read-Through. We got the wine. Hope you got your wine as well. And we're just doing a little interaction. So if y'all are feeling what y'all are reading, if y'all are feeling how I'm reading it, because in my mind, I feel like I'm doing a pretty good job. But if y'all are enjoying how the read through is going, if you're enjoying the story that you hear kind of building up, just go ahead and drop a hashtag WMAM. That means I have to pour another little bit of this glass and take a sip as I continue this read through. So we are on page 165, about to hit 20 pages shortly, but this is a super critical part of the story. So I'm just going to kind of keep on going a little bit. And like I said, as you guys are enjoying it, whether you're tuned in with headphones, casting on your TV, watching on your phone, watching on your tablet, whatever the case may be, just enjoy the read as we keep going on. This is We Missed the Meeting, They Chose You, Mr. Ferguson. Actually, one of the best parts of the book because it actually defines. This next part actually describes the whole concept of the name in itself. And this is where the story really, really, really gets crazy. So, so just curious, sir, why wasn't the attack on the young lady reported to us? It happened suddenly, man, and I was just concerned with getting her and myself away from the scene. I wanted to go home. So you fought off these two guys by yourself, and they're upset with you about it, correct? Threatened you and all, and now they've confronted you? Yes, sir. We responded to the call at the salon. The gentleman who was shot, needless to say, has died. We will need you to join us at the precinct. Am I under arrest? The two officers looked at each other and answered one another with uncertainty. You're not under arrest, but we're going to need an official statement from you and believe it's best to keep you off the streets. Can I come with him? Ma'am, you can meet us down at the precinct, but he will be coming with us alone. Look, someone needs to stay here with my brother, but I also don't want y'all taking my boyfriend like that. Officers, please, is he in trouble? Ma'am, I'll be honest. He's not. Not if he's telling us the truth. It's appeared you have all just been put in a very compromising position, and it sounds like this may be the best choice for the situation. We've taken an official statement, however, and making sure all of our stories from witnesses do match up. Outside of that, any updates, you'll be notified. Stacy, I can stay here with Lorenzo. You can follow the officers to the precinct with Richard. I'll give you my phone number so you can be kept up. It's fine. Go with Richard. I could tell Stacy admired Ileana stepping up, but was still skeptical about leaving her little brother. After all, we're technically still in the neighborhood where Daryl is still out and about playing watchdog. The officers pulled out a flip phone and proceeded to call in that they were taking me in. I had never been arrested before, at least not actually taken to jail or a precinct. But with how these days were going, there was a first time for everything. I had also never shot a gun at someone, or let alone hit a living target, but instincts to survive kicked in, and I can't say I'm not proud of myself. It was just around 11:30 a.m. when I arrived to the precinct, and it was an absolute shit show. It seemed, in my opinion, as though the police were guarding themselves in rather than anything else. The precinct had become a fortress guarded by squad cars, paddy wagons, a tactical unit SUV out front. They had assigned deputized citizens to be on watch to guard the front entrance, and almost everyone on the perimeter of the building was armed with either an M16 or a combat shotgun. Okay, so tell us how the story goes one more time. This was officially my 5th time reiterating the story, retelling it to almost every officer that walked in. Just prior to the end, a new officer would walk in, converse with the already present officers, then asked who I was and what I was doing downtown. They pretended, hold on, my bad. They pretended like they'd known who I was and then asked once again for me to retell the story from the start. So this guy stomps you out. You fight back, and then he threatens you and says, if I ever see you again, I'm gonna kill you. Is that right? Yes, officer. Now, was there any prior problems, altercations, or conflict between the two of you? No, officer. I was his manager at Powerman, and we had never had any personal conflicts, at least to my knowledge. So, one officer looked to another. The kid was trying to smash the intern, and this guy played hero. Now he's got goons in the streets chasing and ready to kill him. Sounds believable to you? Honestly, no. This guy's got more story to tell. So, Richard, we're going to give you one more chance to just come clean, brother. Look, tell us what you did and why this guy is willing to have people bust rounds in occupied salons over you. Like, there's no small offense, man. Like, you know, these guys wanted you dead, and we just need to know why. Officers, I'm telling you, there's nothing more I can think of. We were just together about 30 minutes before the whole thing. Maybe he wanted to be a manager. Maybe he didn't just like that I was, I don't know, uppity or appeared to kiss ass at Powerman. I honestly don't know. Let me ask you a question, Mr. Richard. Did you kiss ass at Powerman? The room grew silent, and all five of the officers looked at me, seamlessly believing that I did, in fact, kiss ass at Powerman. No, I didn't. I did not. What's that got to do with anything? Well, let the chief explain. We're just glad you got off the streets, man. The five of them would exit, and I was left alone, handcuffed to the table. It had appeared to me once again that everything was made abreast of a subject matter but me. Everyone was made abreast of a certain subject matter but me. That was so common at Powerman. This was the treatment I got that so many people believed to be a privilege from an outside looking in. It appeared I had the inside scoop of new investments, new directions, layoffs, and upcoming promotions. They thought they made me the plug, yet a failing plug because I ultimately had no details to provide anyone. Yet they continuously asked me. Management kept information on a senior level or higher basis to assure that information never moved down to the employees. This is why I was amazed that yesterday turned out the way it did. Listen, buddy. One poked his head back in. Everything's gonna be all right, man. We're just gonna have the officer. We're just gonna have Officer Crawford speak to you. All right, hang tight, son. All right, cool. You know when a cop say hang tight, boy, that ain't nothing good. I know enough. I know enough that hang tight from a cop means that you're not going anywhere for a while, or in short, you're going to jail. Part of me wanted to fight to break this handcuff and break out of here. Desire to not be in one place for too long, whatever name you can give that terrifying amount of anxiety began to take over. I didn't want to be here, and the uncontrollable terror of not knowing how Lorenzo was doing, if Stacy made it to the precinct, where my mother was, on top of the overall feeling of confusion and terror just continued over me. I was scared that among all of this, I might be put behind bars for firing my weapon and potentially killing someone. Not to mention that I was leaving out the part where Pierre shot Will. It seemed like a necessary bit to leave out to protect all of our interests. Or was it? When the door swung open, there were 6 officers walking in. And lastly entered Stacy, who was given the only additional seat in the room. Good afternoon, Mr. Ferguson. I'm Interim Police Chief Bernardo Crawford. This is Lieutenant Kim Fillmore, Deputy Fred Davis, Sergeant Sandro Lightburn, Officer Edward Haynes, and Officer Luis Lopez. I understand some of the officers took some time to speak with you about your situation that took place earlier. I just want to ask some additional questions about some information we've gathered from yourself, some eyewitnesses, as well as your girlfriend here, Stacy. Is that okay, Mr. Ferguson? Yeah. Is there a major problem, Chief? Yes, everything is fine. In fact, let the man breathe. Y'all can remove the cuffs. Officer Crawford spoke softly despite what we saw on TV. He was a soft-spoken guy. His beard was growing back in as he was aged and didn't seem like the type of cop that looked to do anything other than what was in the best interest of good, everyday people. At least that's what I got from him. So you've been a manager at Powerman, correct? I nodded. For how long would you say? Well, I technically was more of a team lead than a manager, but I guess you can say they were hinting at my promotion soon, maybe. You're no longer with the company, is that true? I mean, technically, yes, but as of yesterday, none of the staff showed up. None of the staff. Officer Crawford peered at me over the top of his glasses. Well, I took a really long pause, but looked at Stacy because now I had to acknowledge it. All but the white staff members. I guess I'm more aware of that fact now, so I don't know what's going on. Mr. Ferguson, Sergeant Lightburn started. Of the employees that arrived at work together yesterday, were any of those team leads or managers? No. Associate reps kind of scattered from different departments and teams, really. So what was yesterday like? What happened? What was the overall agenda? Well, that was supposed to be a meeting. The meeting was scheduled at 8:15 a.m., but no one showed up. So I sent everybody back to their desks to work. I checked out the building, searched for and called almost everyone I could think of, and then just headed back upstairs. Damn it. Damn it. By the way, they do in fact say the words, "We missed the meeting." Who were some of the people you called? Asked Officer Lopez. Everyone. Everyone in the book, every last one of them, from representative to human resources to managers, even the executive assistants to CEO. And not one answered. Lieutenant Fillmore asked. Not one. All I got was the intern, Ileana. Is there a protocol or information about who's chain of command on a day like this? Asked the police chief. No, I don't think there's ever been a day like this. So no, chief. How did you assume the position of leading and directing everyone to go back to their desks then? Deputy Davis asked, adjusting himself on the table. I guess you could say it was somewhat assumed. I was always called on to lead these meetings. So when no one showed up, I made a judgment call to postpone the meeting until someone in leadership could be found. And they never were. No, never. The room became quiet and the officers turned their heads to one another for affirmation on a thought or a statement, maybe to verify if they believed I was telling the truth. And now this gentleman, Chuck is his name. Charles Rowe. He had attacked you, and what else? What else happened? They tried to shoot Richard and instead hit Eves. His name is Edison Velez. Is any of this going to be Richard's fault? Stacy interjected, but cautiously. He shouldn't. Not in times like these. We can see your actions, Mr. Ferguson, as an act of self-defense. But can you cite for using a firearm that was not registered? But we can cite you for using a firearm that was not registered to you. You're registered to carry, but this particular piece wasn't yours. Whose was it? If you can provide us with that information. Crawford just ended his statement. No finalized promise, probably because, as I later learned, there were barely enough people to manage and send people to jail. I sighed, and I hated that I had to do what I was about to do. A security guard at Powerman gave it to me. He saw what went down in the garage, jumped in the car with me, and asked to be taken home. When I took him, he gave it to me and told me to protect myself. He's a security guard at some other place and said the times required it. We appreciate you for your honesty. We'll see to it that a task force keeps an eye out for all these people involved. The security guard, Chuck, Daryl, all of these guys. Deputy Davis closed. But we need more clarity on your situation at Powerman. Some things are just not coming clear to us, Mr. Ferguson, and we need your cooperation. I'm not sure what else you need to know. The room fell quiet. Son, Crawford began. There was a board of trustees among HL powermen, as well as a committee within our city's Chamber of Commerce, not to mention a committee within the teachers union, all of which were led by a few higher ups, some dignitaries, some important people from around the city. Okay. Specifically and explicitly in all of these groups, we have found some form of evidence, be it a call log, he was cut off by Sergeant Lightburn quickly, a voicemail, and even post-it notes, all stating in some form of fashion that you were a primary means of contact for something, Richard Ferguson. My head swung around as I looked and listened. We've pulled your name from over 160 calls made in the last 6 weeks on publicly accessible phone logs, emails, text messages, and voicemails. All we're trying to figure out is that if you know anything at all about the whereabouts of the city's leaders, at least if you could tell us what you were involved in, that would be great. When the chief had said 160 calls, it continued to echo in my mind. My name was being brought up in calls and in digital conversations enough for me to be a person of interest in the missing case of over 4,300 people in town. Not to mention that the number was growing. I could just throw up. Is that, Stacy started to butt in. Chief, is that a mistake? Richard doesn't even communicate with the 160 people at Powerman. Our team, and we ain't a lot, has been on these monitored calls ever since we initially called the police chief to be missing. As we mentioned, 160 calls alone. The emails and all that other junk is a whole different number. So, Mr. Ferguson, if you have any connection to this, we need to know. Lieutenant Fillmore placed her hand on my shoulder. You're gonna have to let me think out loud for a second. I was dizzy from the thoughts. My thoughts were on overload. This doesn't look good. I've got Chuck and Will after me, chasing me through the streets, ready to kill me, and now I have my name dropped in calls and emails from random groups of people who are now missing. So I must look like the world's most wanted man right now to you officers, huh? I mean, we're not saying that, but I do admit, son, it is a bit suspicious. And what if I can't defend any of this? That's also in your best interest. When you called leadership at Powerman yesterday, did you leave voicemails? I left one. There's a new lady at the office, newer, I should say, Luann Scott. One of the officers started writing notes. Why Luann Scott and no one else? She talked a lot. You know, one of those people who just can't keep their mouth shut. She could barely hold water. So you thought she might know something. At the time, I thought there might be a holiday, a company holiday or some shit. I thought they were like waiting for something, or a call went over. She'd know. She always did. What kind of information had Mrs. Scott given you in the past then? What solidified her credibility with you? Like, what made her that source for you? I was fighting to remember, but also fighting to choose the right story that wouldn't grow the list of "we hate Richard," but also a situation that wouldn't compromise me here, especially in front of Stacy. Layoffs, hires, investments. What was going on? I put my finger up thinking personal life stuff of some of the staff, things like that. And was anyone else aware of Mrs. Scott's gossip, or was it just she was coming to you with all of this? Well, she was new. They were staring at me. Everyone blankly but comprehending. I helped her with onboarding. You know, those conversations you have when the presentations are done. You kind of get sidetracked, not in a bad way, but we had personal conversations. She told me, I reminded her of her son, Christian. But other than that, it was just stuff like, hey, Richard, did you hear? And telling me about her role in the company, which was, Crawford kept his face towards me. but his eyes down on the paper, rubbing his beard with one hand and doodling on a sheet of paper with the other. I actually didn't know. I I really don't know. I think she was an analyst, maybe something IT related. Had you ever met her son, Mr. Ferguson? Strange that a white woman would say you reminded her of him, no? Officer Lopez jumped in. I nodded my head in a quiet no. Just assumed she meant age-wise. I always assume older women mean age-wise when they say someone reminds them of their son. So let's wrap this up for a second, Mr. Ferguson. Guys like Chuck and Will, they're not a big problem for us right now. I looked totally confused by that statement. We can have that handled. There was a pause. And we can continue on our investigations. And if we find out you're keeping information from us, guess what? We won't jail you, Mr. Ferguson. But you will regret this. They all start hopping around and kind of bouncing around in these statements. Babe, what was on the agenda for yesterday's meeting? The 6 officers all turned to me, puzzled, yet hoping to hear something of substance that could help them. Well, I began to explain from what I remember. On the 4th, we had a brief meeting to discuss some client portfolios, some additional information that would be updated on how things were going. Now, we usually would have a meeting like this on a Friday, but they said that some updates had came in and there would be a briefing with a client on a long distance call on Friday. I wasn't allowed on this call mainly because it was for senior level execs, the client portfolio for some company out in India or Vietnam. I don't remember. Tell us about this company. Ever heard any names, representatives, high level guys? Come on. Never names, but I know Powerman was working on scaling something up for them, and they were a technology company. They were developing AI or machine learning or something like that. No names though. AI. Like Siri. Like on the iPhone, boss. No names at all, Mr. Ferguson. Not one. Darcy Lindbergh or Lindbergh. I think that was their secretary or the girl who would answer the phone. And maybe once I heard the name Bakara. I don't know. When I said the name Bakara, 12 pairs of eyes opened wide, almost with joy from me breaking ice. Those that were seated stood up, and those that were standing reached out to the person to the left and or to the right of them. And it took me moments to figure out why. What can you tell us about Bakara, Mr. Ferguson? Shit you hear around the office, really? Barely. It's all Indian IT related stuff, guys. I don't know. Maybe it's a software or a hardware. I don't know. Okay. Indian IT stuff. You've mentioned it twice, so it's more than just that. Can you tell us some Indian IT related guy names? If the motherfucker's name ain't Vishna, Krishna, Sharma, or Earl, officer, I just said hi. I was getting annoyed by their badgering. Is Bakara of serious relevance, officers? The response was a long pause. Serious relevance? Yeah. It came up once or twice, and we're trying to see if Bakara is a person who might know deeper details as to why Powerman and why Mr. Ferguson here are all the possible base of everything. So Bakara is, we actually don't know. Maybe we could have you walk over to the office and take a look through any logs in your computers. How embarrassing. Also, how compromising now that I thought of it, that I'd have to admit to the officers that the entire office main floor, the one and only open space with accessible computers, was completely destroyed by mad black employees. Mr. Ferguson, Officer Lightburn called for my attention, but I was locking up now. Officers, the employees trashed the office while I was downstairs making calls. I hesitated. A bold-faced lie, if I had ever told one myself. I came back up to them just trashing the place, pretty much. The officers looked around to one another, shaking their heads. Plus, those guys wouldn't have access to that. Not that I think they would. They nodded their heads. But we didn't go through every computer, just the ones on the main floor. So the conference room may still have audio. There's a lot of gear there that might be able to tap into it. I don't know. This is good. Definitely. Mr. Ferguson, we need you to come with us. There's a lot more that we need from you, and this needs to be done in a more private environment. I could hear Fillmore and Deputy Davis on their flip phones. We'll keep an eye for Charles Rowe, authority and deputization for citizen volunteers. I rose and continued walking with the 4 other officers and did not hear the rest of what was being said. But I'd heard enough to know that I had just given a piece of information so vital that these officers, along with all the current police force, was willing to eliminate any and all of my problems, including Charles Chuck Rowe. There was something up at the moment that I was unsure about, but I was hoping details would come full circle to me very soon. The speed and the ferocity at which Police Chief walked was terrifying. It was though I had said a magic word or a secret code that I was now in the club, the small but growing club of people who really knew what the fuck was going on. Mr. Ferguson, Miss Desmond, we'll be retrieving your brother and your mother, sir. I'm placing them under protective watch here at the precinct. They will not be harmed, but we will have to sit the 4 of you down for this. And the girl, Ileana, the intern, you mean? Yes, can she come? She can come too, right? Stacy butted in. We won't be able to fill her in on everything, just like the rest of them, but we'll do our best. Give us a few moments. And I'm going to stop right there. Because that is good enough. Damn, that was a good little chunk. That was almost 40 pages. But yeah, that is, like I said, that was a really, really good passage to read. That was solid. I'm impressed by my book opening abilities. But yeah, y'all, let me know what y'all think, man. Let me know what y'all think of what y'all heard. To break it down, I guess, because there's a little bit of context missing in the plot of the story, but the line of events is that the main character Richard goes to work, like I've always said. He goes to work. He discovers that it's only the Black employees, which it's funny because I specifically put 45. Y'all say, what's up, Mango? I specifically put that there was 45 Black employees at this company, which only made up like 3 or 4% of the diversity at the company. And that was just me being kind of hypercritical, right? I wanted to get a number that really felt like an exaggeration of amount of how small, right? And then over the last 6 years, I've discovered that like you would be lucky if you work with 45 Black people at a company. That's actually a really large number. And so while they're kind of discovering and figuring out what all is taking place, they all get mad and they decide to say, like, you know what, fuck this place. And they trash the office and they leave. And upon leaving, 2 of the employees decide to try to take advantage of the intern. Her name is Ileana, who you heard the name pop up a few times. And, it's a very, I chose not to go like too deep into that, but they do try to take advantage of her, like force her into a car and type stuff. And Richard stops him, and then they jump him. And then the security guard interferes, and his interference escalates the situation. And so that escalation basically is what's following them through the whole situation. One of the characters, Will, gets shot by the security guard. his buddy Chuck decides, yo, I don't like you. I never liked you when we worked together as co-workers. I don't like you now. And to be honest with you, I have displaced anger about what's going on in the world. So you're just my next target. And like Richard was saying, like he just didn't realize how connected bro was. And so that whole situation follows. Man, I wish y'all could see how Mango is drinking water right now. That whole situation kind of follows Richard for a good amount of time. And as you guys heard, like it starts to rack up collateral damage. People are getting hurt. His girlfriend's brother gets hurt, things like that. And it just keeps going. And literally beyond that chapter, the next chapter from that, I believe, is chapter 7. Nope. Chapter 8, right? The whole second act of the book. The whole second act of the book. Chuck is no longer a problem. Which, like, I kind of wanted it to draw out more in terms of like what happens to Chuck. Like, how does this character literally just go from like kind of appearing to be the bad guy of the story, and then all of a sudden, like, he's not even a factor. But I reading it again and just remembering how it actually went, it's kind of implied that like they legit took care of him, and that ends up being a really, 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 really big part of the story moving forward. Man, it's like this story is so interesting because and I really like how much of it is like threaded into the next chapter. It's absolutely, it's a ride. It's a wild, wild ride. And a lot of that is kind of crazy because I remember when I was writing this, when I was finishing up the final touches on this book, I had never been a team lead before, and I had never been a manager in my career ever. And I remember kind of telling myself to never let a job Richard Ferguson me. And what I mean by that, like never letting a job Richard Ferguson to me, meaning like not letting a job treat me like more than what my job title was. At the end of the day, like Richard was a team lead, but he was leading meetings. He was like, they were already positioning him in a way where he was going to be more important than he actually was. And he just, he never saw it. He was never going to see it coming. And sorry, y'all, Mango's just being Mango. But yeah, that was something that like, people talk about like rewriting a character, and your first initiative or your first instinct. Sorry, like Mango's she's competing in the Paralympics right now. Your first instinct when you're writing a character is like almost to put yourself in that character, right? And as I was writing this story, I actually did not want to put myself in Richard Ferguson. I actually wanted to write Richard Ferguson in a way where I don't like him. Like, I don't like him as a character. I don't like his person. I don't like how he walk. I don't like how I just wanted to write a character that I legitimately did not like. And because he's narrating the story, you as a reader, you're rooting for him until you're not. Like, there's going to be a point in the story where you're just like, you know what? Wow, I don't like this nigga. Like, I don't like this guy. I don't like his character. I don't know if you noticed, but like he lies about certain things, like in the middle of telling a story to the cops about what happened. And it's like the whole time what you're reading is what's called an unreliable narrator. Like someone who, because they're the narrator, it's like you almost give them the benefit of the doubt. And then you just, by the end of the story, you're just like, hey man, this person's character is questionable. And you find out more things. Like he's like, oh, I don't want to go too deep into my history or what I've done at HL Powerman, which is the name of the company. And there's reasons why, bro. Like throw people under the bus, giving away the story. But going back to the whole thing about threading the story, man, it's like it's kind of dope because everything that happens in this first book, just like any good story should have, it comes back later. And everything that comes back later is about people's character. So Richard Ferguson's character is questioned later in the book. Will Johnson Hughes, if I were to continue reading, you would end up learning that like he got shot by the security guard, he recovers, and he decides to like change his life. Like he gets baptized after a couple of months, and then he randomly wakes up one day, goes to his neighborhood. He lives in the hood, in like the hood neighborhood in the story. And his family happens to be one of the oldest families there, and he decides that he wants to run for president. There's no president in the United States because the absence, right? So the country's kind of like left alone. He decides to start campaigning hood to hood. And as he's doing that, he starts gaining traction. Something happens in the story that kind of trips that up. And in the next story, he just keeps pushing on with like, I'm going to run for president. I'm going to fix this. I'm going to figure it out. And eventually his character is questioned because the whole situation with Ileana gets brought back up. Like, dude, we found out that you tried to like physically assault someone. Okay. The police chief, they find out that, yo, you was out here like taking care of people to protect this Richard dude. Like, who is Richard? Like it just becomes literally a story of just calculated coincidences and things just falling apart, man. And it's like a really, it's not enough for me to say like the story is about one thing, because there's so much in the story that's backdrop, foreground. There's AI, Bakara, right? And as you read the story, you'll later realize that Bakara is a program or an initiative. Then you meet Alexander, who's the actual AI, and then you like it's literally a spiraling tale of calculated coincidences. There's like a bunch of stuff that just happens that's like it's just loading up. And I think that makes it such a interesting story to read. So yeah, that's We Missed the Meeting. Glasses up for that. Cheers. Yeah, y'all let me know what y'all think. That was fun. That was actually really fun to read like that. I can honestly say that I did better that time than I did the last time that I did a read through like that. But yeah, man. So that is the story that's being re-released. That is the specific story that's being re-released. Super important for me to do that, not only just for the cover, but I think I say it all the time. I was just a little ahead of my time. I was a little behind the curve on just understanding the whole process of self-publishing books and getting books out there like that. And with what I know now versus back then, I think it's just like a really good time to reintroduce it. I'm a better storyteller now than I was then. And it would be cool to just reintroduce the whole thing. So as I mentioned last week, ran into some hurdles, ran into some roadblocks with re-releasing the book last week, specifically around the whole AI thing. I think, I'm not gonna lie to y'all, like it's really hard to figure out and there's no one to consult on it, but I think I'm just gonna bypass the whole AI thing. We'll make no note of it. I'll list the artist in the cover as like a pseudonym, Alexander Whitecheck or something like that, or whatever. The idea behind the cover was to use AI to create images from the story, because the story is about how AI sees all of the events unfolding and and playing out anyway. So that was like me being creative and kind of like bypassing the process of having to reach out to someone at Fiverr or something like that for a jacket. I know how to design a jacket. This jacket actually, and by the way, a jacket refers to the overall, right? Front and back, very wide PDF file that you have to create and stuff like that. This jacket I created, it was not easy. But you know, after a couple fuck ups, you get it right. So we're just gonna move forward with the jacket and just put it out, right? And my anticipated date for the release of We Missed a Meeting is going to be September 19th, Thursday. I would love to really put out books on Tuesdays with the rest of the world, because that's when everybody else's books release. But let's not do that. Like let's just stick to our own guns and put the book out on September 19th. That day is also going to be the day that I put out a physical copy of the other stories. Don't go playing in the hood. Don't go playing in the hood. Don't go playing in the hills. And that is also the, let's see, what would that be? That would also be the 5th year anniversary of Tags by Marvel, now known as VividLife Apparel. So it's gonna be a cool day. Gonna do a lot of internet stuff. And then on September 18th, I'm gonna be putting out I'm not putting out, but I'm actually gonna be doing a live chat on my Discord channel. So there's been a lot, man. There's been a lot of really cool stuff. Weekend schedule, like release a book on a weekend. No, not wise at all. That's like, you know, like artists put out music on Fridays, right? There's like a no weekend schedule. What are you talking about? Oh, what am I doing this weekend? Ah, okay, that's a different conversation. I love that. Yeah, September 18th, I'm gonna be doing a um, Discord call. Just dope shit, man. Like I'm just really trying to get the book back out. I'm trying to fix it and adjust it and get it back to where it needs to be. I think it's a book that's worth the time and the energy, and it's a dope ass story. I think it's just crazy now with the whole fucking AI shit, like the way AI is. And I don't mind AI. Like I'm not anti AI except on Facebook. Like Jesus AI. I don't know if you guys have been keeping up with like the what is it called? AI Jesus kind of situation where they have it's actually it's actually kind of scary. But there are pages that are ran by AI. They're bots, and they interact with other bots, and they also get engagement, like engagement farming. And I guess it figured out this shit is like real. It's crazy. It figured out that the number one content type that gets engagement were like photos of Jesus, right? And so it started posting random photos of Jesus, very random, and people interact with it. I don't think people realize it's like fake, right? Or it's AI generated. And so because it realizes how much more engagement it can get, it started just creating random, like really, really random photos of Jesus. Like, and it has now evolved into like showing AI and robots as Jesus. I'm not making this up. I will try my best to find wherever it is at, dog. It's the craziest shit in the world, and it's funny because yes, it's you got the bots responding to the bots, but I feel like someone's aunt is like on Facebook, and the caption on the photo of like Jesus underwater swimming with like dolphins or something would be like, if you want to praise Jesus today, say amen in the comments. And like someone's aunt, like one of our aunts probably is on Facebook, just like, yes, amen, like amen to Jesus with dolphins. It's like, it's crazy. But yeah, what am I doing this weekend? I don't know, man. I heard y'all boys got y'all permission slip signed, so like, like I don't know. I would actually prefer to. I don't know. Oh, it's Labor Day weekend this weekend. I should tell you where I'm at. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really. I don't have plans, man. So I'm up in the air. I might stay home, play The Sims, play City Skyline. I might hop on that now after this. But on the real, just in terms of like everything moving forward, I'm actually gonna take I've decided, man, I'm gonna take a social media break for the month of September. And I know that sounds crazy because everything that I just said about promoting the book and all that stuff, I'm taking a social media break from like posting and like stories and shit like that. But I definitely want to get my focus more into the Discord channel and just interacting and engaging with the Discord channel. So for y'all that don't know, I have a Discord channel now that is like focused on, my craft, my work, as well as supporting other creatives in just terms of like networking, talking creative, talking, motivation, and just kind of like building like legit a community of creatives that can just bounce ideas off of each other, which is why I was talking about September 18th and really hosting something within that Discord channel. So I'm going to drop the QR code for that here. Like I did last week, man. That's the QR code for the Discord channel. It's really, really dope. We got about, I think we're upwards of like 22 people in there. Just really shooting the shit as well as just like focusing on building out our interests. Like, what is it that you need? What is it that you need as a creative? Like, what is it that you need in terms of getting yourself together, your marketing? Like, how do you become a better storyteller? That's my craft. That's my specialty, right? Figuring out how to be a better storyteller, using the visuals, using these platforms, these tools, and everything like that. I know I got Chris in the comments in the chat watching with us. Dude, I think it would be dope if you had a Discord channel. Think of it as like an Instagram broadcast channel, except it's not one-way communication. I think that's kind of like the dope thing about Discord, is that it's not one-way communication. It's like you get to build your niche, your market, your core audience, your people that want to connect with you, learn from you, and then also be able to bounce off of other people. You get to do all of that. So, worldwide is that's that idea. It's like, yo, I'm in there, I'm sharing my ideas, I'm sharing my concepts, my work, but also like let's actually get people like networking, and let's really build a community. Y'all know that's like one of my big things for this year is community. So, and honestly speaking, I just feel like the people in there get like first preference, right? So honestly, and people talk about networking and doing whatever, I'm just like, if you're not in there, you're not really gang. But yeah, so check that out, enjoy it, connect on that. You guys should be able to either click these links that I'm sharing, or at least check out use your QR code on your phone and just take a look at that. But nice little hour 53 on here, you know what I'm saying? So I'm actually gonna break out right here and just kind of end for the night, man. But I definitely want to just show these again. We Missed the Meeting. They chose You, Mr. Ferguson. This one, I don't know, man. I'm trying to work on it. I gotta let it go. Like that's it. I just gotta let this one go, bro. Like I'm like emotionally attached to this. Really nervous about putting it out. But Black Grasshopper, that's another one. And of course, your favorite galactic story, your favorite time travel story, A Boy Bathed in Blood. So y'all check those titles out, man, and stay up with us. There are new posts. If you're interested in following up on the storyline that I just read from on We Missed the Meeting, there are going to be now posts available on my Patreon page that are going to be chronicled, like numbered stories. Kind of dope if you want to get like an outside looking in kind of introduction to the whole storyline. Check that out. So there's We Missed the Meeting #1, Welcome to the D. That's really cool because it kind of tells the story of like the world of We Missed the Meeting. Like it's not a world we recognize. It's a little different. And then from there, every character will kind of have their own little piece to just speak to the whole overall story. So if you really want to get bought into it, if you're a reader, you really want to check something out, some new for your fall reading. It's not on audiobook yet. I don't know if it will be. But after today's reading, I think I might look to invest the time to make this an audiobook. But we'll see. Let's go through this first release first. And then we'll take it from there. So look, I appreciate you guys for tuning in tonight. VividLife TV. We will be back next week, September 4th at 8 p.m. Just to give you guys the schedule. Let me make sure I'm looking at this correctly. We will be back next week, September 4th, as well as September 11th, and then just about every other Wednesday thereafter until December 13th. So the schedule will follow September 4th, 11th, 25th, 2nd, 16th, 30th, 6th, 24, and then 11. The 1 year anniversary of VividLife TV will be December 11th, 2024, man. So it's gonna be cool. Hop in the Discord after. DJ Brightlight says hop in the Discord after. So y'all check it out, man. I'm gonna put that QR code one more time back up. Marvel World Worldwide Discord. We're going voice channel. Y'all check it out, man. Y'all thank y'all for tuning in, and I will see y'all next